Well, good. All right, we'll call this meeting to order, January 7th, 2025. Happy New Year, all. Now, we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards. If we could stand briefly for a moment of silence. We were notified last week of a county employee who unexpectedly lost her husband, so we would like to offer a moment of silence in recognition of Chad Green. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. Thanks all. Thoughts and prayers are with Jamie and her family at this difficult time. First order of business this morning, we have a ceremony for the elected officials swearing in. And we've got two individuals that are going to continue serving, which is a good thing from our perspective up here. We've got the Honorable Judge Lavery, who has came down to help officiate the oath of office. It's been brought to my understanding that there's a good chance this may be his last time due to a upcoming retirement. So we certainly wanted to recognize Judge Lavery for his years of offering these and thanking him for coming today. A good man and a great public servant. So at this time, I'd hand it over to Judge Lavery.
Thank you, Chairman West, members of the County Commission. Who's first?
Start with Taylor.
Mr. Jones. Do you want us to stand any particular way for?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay. Morning. How are you? Commissioner Jones, raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Taylor Jones,
Having been duly elected
having been duly elected
as Sweetwater County Commissioner,
as Sweetwater County Commissioner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
that I have not knowingly violated any law
that I have not knowingly violated any law
related to my election
related to my election
or caused it to be done by others,
or caused it to be done by others,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Good morning. Do you want to come up by the mic a little bit? Raise your right hand, please. I state your name,
I, Mary Tolman,
having been duly elected
having been duly elected
as Sweetwater County Commissioner,
as Sweetwater County Commissioner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
and the Constitution of the State of Wyoming,
that I have not knowingly violated any law
that I have not knowingly violated any law
related to my election
related to my election
or caused it to be done by others,
or caused it to be done by others,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my
the
office
duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Signatures.
Oh,
I believe. If you want to come sign.
Chairman West, members of the commission, thank you for your kind words this morning. It's not imminent, but in 2026, my time on the bench will come to an end because of the age limit on serving on the district court bench. I want to say thank you to the members of the Sweetwater County Commission, both current and past. It's always been great to work in this building and have the support of the county. And so we appreciate that a lot. It's been an easy place to be, and you make it that way. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Judge. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Happy New Year to you.
You too.
And congratulations to both of you. It's been an honor to serve with you, and I look forward to continuing to serve. So congratulations. The next item is we do have a quorum present this morning with all 5 commissioners in attendance. So at this time, commissioners, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda unless there are any changes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Jones. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Being the first meeting of the year, it is that time where we have the election of chairman. And so at this time, I would open up nominations.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards,
nominate Keaton West as chairman.
we have a nomination for Commissioner West to be chair. Are there any other nominations?
You don't need a second, do you?
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we will close the nominations and I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to vote by acclamation Keaton West as our chairman.
We have a motion to approve Commissioner West as chair by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thank you all. I have really enjoyed this experience. It's been a learning curve, a little bit more time consuming than I think I initially thought, but it's manageable because of, the 4 of you and the fact that we can distribute the workload evenly and rely on one another to, take the heavy loads when difficult items arise. So there's really no difference other than running the meeting and, setting the agenda up here. And I can look forward to continuing to serve that way and working together as a team. So it's an honor to serve with you all, and I appreciate your vote of confidence. And with that, we're going to move right into business under tab A, which is a public hearing. We've got, I believe, 3 budget amendments before us this morning. First being resolution 25-01-CL-01 to increase the clerk's office operating budget in the amount of $70,882.50. With us this morning is accounting specialist Rebecca Romero. And good morning.
Good morning. So this budget amendment will cover the increase for the ClearGov service order that we approved at the last meeting.
Very good. Questions on this resolution, commissioners? Seeing none, we do need to open this up for a public hearing at this time. If there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
move to make sure I'm on the right one here. Approve resolution 25-01-CL-01 to increase the clerk's office operating budget in the amount of $70,882.50.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Item 2 under tab A this morning is resolution 25-01-CL-02 to move funds for the county attorney's office in the amount of $649.99. And we'll hand it back to Rebecca.
Yes, this is simply to move money out of their operating budget and put it into small capital expenditures. So this will not affect the general fund reserves.
Thanks, Rebecca. Questions on this resolution, commissioners? Hearing none, we do need to open this up for public hearing. So at this time, if there's anyone online or in the audience who would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve resolution 25-01 CL-02 in the amount of $649.99.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Slaughter. Do we have a second?
I'd second that.
Second by Commissioner Tillman. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. The last item under tab A is item number 3. We've got resolution 25-01 CL-03 to make changes to the capital project budget in the amount of $6,500,000. And we'll move it back to Rebecca.
Yes, this is to move the funds out of road and bridge into facilities maintenance, building and improvement.
I believe it was in there and somehow.
It was in there, and then I think what happened, someone told me road and bridge was going to move in there, and so I thought it was a road and bridge project, but it's actually a facilities project.
Okay, so we're just moving line items.
Mhm. Yes.
Questions on this resolution, commissioners? Hearing none, we also need to open this up for public hearing. So at this time, if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to this resolution, now would be the appropriate time. Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to approve resolution 2501 CL03 to make changes to the capital project budget in the amount of $6,500,000.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And this is going to move us right along into the county resident comments and concerns portion of the agenda. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to speak to the governing body on any issues, now would be the appropriate time. Good morning to you, Senator Kolb.
Morning, Chairman. Good morning to the board. Congratulations to the newly elected members. Just came up to ask if there's any particular thing you want to focus on during the legislative session. And kind of give an opportunity to have a back and forth conversation, because of course in the past it's always been kind of sketchy on how we, come to know what you'd like or not like during the course of a session. So and it's kind of an open-ended question. Sorry, I kind of sprung it on you. I didn't say anything before this, but I thought it's worthy of at least throwing it out there to hear what we all are. Maybe you can ask me questions. I can respond, whatever you'd think is appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. No, we appreciate you coming over and for engaging us. We'll be down there in a couple of weeks during the session, so we'll look forward to working with you there as well. But it's always nice to have an open line of communication. I guess from my perspective, I would ask kind of what you're hearing as far as bills. I know last year was, heavy on the property tax, and I assume we're going to hear more of that this year. And I'm not sure where things are headed with the direct distribution, if you have any thoughts on that, but that's where I would probably start.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So the property tax thing is going to be high up on the list. And I think the question in my mind is, what are we going to do to basically consolidate the programs we have? Because there was, it's kind of jerky operation, go a little forward, go a little more forward and get something done. So I think consolidation of the programs that we currently have is probably pretty important. As you know, though, the budget bills start with the House and then come over to the Senate. So they're really going to be trying to guide in that train about just how this is going to work. There's been some conversations about, certainly my preference would be is to balance these property tax cut with budget cuts in order to make them certainly cost neutral for the counties and for the districts that get a mill percentage from those said monies. So I think that's definitely, up in the air. It's just how that's going to work. Is it going to be at 25%? I think that's what they're going to start with. That's going to cost, the estimates are 120 million a year, 240 a biennium to the state of Wyoming, if it was 100% backfilled. And a lot of those folks being other legislators, don't really think about the consequences for what they're doing. Like, what does it really mean? I mean, I think, Sweetwater's unique, right? I mean, I represent part of Sweetwater in Rock Springs. So my base, my people, my constituents are kind of more densely populated. So public services are a bigger impact for them. If you were to going to cut them, say the waste district or what it may be, I don't know, but I don't know how that's going to shake with the back funding issue. And that does dovetail into the local distribution issue, because obviously that's some low hanging fruit there, where we could save 120 million, 130 million a year. So obviously that could be used. I just kind of thought about that, and I guess not a very good thing, but there's going to be consequences for skinnying down government. And, I'm in favor of that. I think certainly we have, $6 billion Department of Health. Obviously there's probably money to be saved there. I'm in the Senate, not the House, and we haven't seen what they're going to really come up with yet. But I do know that definitely property tax is very high on the list. That 25% is probably going to come through. I think it has to come through in my mind with a sunset date on it, because just to tell the board and the audience that might be listening to this, that the projection is that we're going to run out of money in 2030 for funding education. That's the wall we're up against. That's the projections from the LSO, Legislative Service Office, when they do the budget analysis. So knowing that, I wouldn't be in favor of perpetual tax cut on property unless we knew we could afford to do it. And we don't know that yet, right? These are just projections. But it looks like there's going to be some severe challenges trying to fund government if we don't cut down the cost of government. Maybe that's not a long answer to a short question, Mr. Chairman.
No, I appreciate that. And I guess that's kind of where I was heading. I know there was some rebates and tax reform last year, and some were backfilled, some weren't. And so, it provides a break for, the citizens, but also, it can have detrimental effects on government, like the county, who is, picking up the tab on that. So I guess I would just ask to try and make us whole as well, especially if we're dipping into the direct distribution, because at some point we're going to be faced with the same, where it has kind of a trickle down effect, where if we don't have the same revenues coming in that we're used to, then obviously we're going to have to make cuts as well, which generally is going to be to, outside services. So you got a tough year ahead, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely an unknown until we settle out the House, the Senate, just how things are going to run. I don't know yet either. I will make an ask, though, that I heard the other day that from the assessor that, there's going to be obviously an impact for certain types of property tax reform. I will make an ask that I need numbers. I don't, just telling me it's going to be an impact doesn't really do me much good, because once again, Sweetwater County is unique on our revenue flow. So, residential property tax in Sweetwater County cut is not going to be nearly as devastating on a percentage basis as, say, a smaller Niobrara County, which I don't represent Niobrara County, just to be sure, but I need ammunition if I'm going to argue something on the floor of the Senate saying this is the reasons why I think it's a good or bad idea. Numbers is what I need, like, what percentage of the budget is going to affect, it just is a general ask when we're trying to quantify something, it'd be really helpful to have a number, like it's going to cost X amount of $1 million or a certain percentage of the budget probably is more applicable because to me, it means more, right? It says what your percentage of change might have to be to do what you're currently doing. So that would be helpful to get actual data when you do have it, that as this evolves, these different property tax bills, we're going to have to know what it means to us. And they're more than just property tax. So there's other tax evaluations they want to cut on actual, like real property, which in Sweetwater is probably a devastating impact when you talk about what the mine assessments are. In other places in the state, of course, they don't have anything. They don't have industrial type of items that are cost, billions of dollars potentially, depends on what industry it is. So that would be pretty important for me too, because that's another current issue on the floor of the Senate, is that some folks are, they don't like us charging a tax on said owned real property. Well, on stuff you own in your house, well, it's no big deal. There's an exemption for a certain amount of that, but for industrial property, I know from in the past being a commissioner that it was a huge part of the revenue for our county.
Commissioner Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of add a couple of finer points. I don't have all the numbers that you're asking for, obviously, but I can give you at least a good starting point, for any of the legislators who the response, if the property taxes are not backfilled, if their response is government just needs to tighten their belt, and I'm probably a fairly big fan of that myself. But last year, we had to cut a substantial amount of money. I know you've been through years with the same thing, but we cut capital, we cut everything. We cut healthcare north of $750,000. And so for anybody who wants to give me the response the government needs to tighten its belt, they're probably not going to appreciate my response. So I would just ask that you take some of those thoughts back with you, that we did that. We've already done it, and that hurts citizens of Sweetwater County already. So to just say we're going to cut property taxes and that's going to make everything hunky-dory is absolutely not true.
Chairman, Commissioner Jones, agreed. I mean, I will say overall, we're probably going to have to live with less money. I think we're going to have to figure out how to get there without being least detrimental as possible. I think we're just going to probably have to figure that out. I'm not one of those people that believe we should go back to 2019 and live in a fantasy world that inflation didn't happen and that we're all dealing with higher costs. But the higher costs mean higher property tax assessments because they're higher costs. So it kind of counterbalances somewhat, but the cost of doing business certainly has gotten more expensive. I appreciate that. I think the state's position is going to be, we are going to spend less money on government, and that's probably going to have a trickle down effect on everybody. I just think that, every Senate district is different. They represent the different types of people with different kinds of impacts. And I think that's the challenge, is to do something that's responsible, but affordable. And, that's the balance here. But, we're a group of 31 in the Senate, and I guess we'll get a vote, and 16 win, and that's how it moves on. But I just think the reality is we're going to have to have less money to run government. We're going to shrink the size of government. Obviously, at your level isn't, that's not the big fish. I mean, that's small potatoes compared to some of these other things that the state deals with. But I appreciate your comment, and I certainly remember being a county commissioner. Haven't forgot that, and I understand what it means for the county.
Well, the 2019 thing kind of bothers me. I don't think government needs to control what our rent is, so to speak. little government controlled rent that leans that direction. So I'm not really a big fan of that myself.
Commissioner Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Kolb, one of the issues, well, a lot of these issues would lead back to exactly what we've talked about previously, but one of the issues that came about in the legislative session last year was the long-term property tax exemption for residents who had had the property for 25 years. I think that there was a misconception last year that that program was backfilled. Has there been any talk with respect to that program and how it will be handled? I know we've had the assessor report to us on what the effect of that will be, and it is significant to us. So if there have not been talks on that, I would certainly encourage you to have those talks. Very, very concerned with what's going on in our mineral industry. You know, having talked with Trona officials just over the last few weeks, the price of Trona has really decreased over the last year. And our valuation obviously is where a lot of our tax revenue is derived. So we're going to be being hit from several facets with respect to that. But that was one area that I felt was kind of important. And I thought that there was, from my understanding, at least some misconception as to whether that was backfilled or not.
Chairman West, Commissioner Slaughter, let's go back in time when we were talking about that long-term property tax exemption for 25 years, 65 years and older. That's the group we're talking about, right? Yeah. So the report that we had is that the cost of the program was minimal because the amount of people that qualified for said program was very low. Now, that all being said, now I go back to what I started with is where are the numbers? What does it mean? I mean, I understand there's an impact, but I didn't know how many folks were going to qualify or sign up for that program either. So that's the data that I do need, because I think all in all, you know, we got to look at this thing as a group. But, you know, legislatively, I'll tell you what, it's just like move on to the next piece of paper. And then all of a sudden you got 20 pieces of paper, maybe doing something close to the same thing that has a similar impact that's negative. So I of course, will look at that and evaluate just what it means when they're not backfilled.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think the assessor just went and got those numbers, if I'm not mistaken. The last I had talked with him, I think that the belief was that there were, as you said, not going to be that many people who would qualify. Last I had talked to the assessor's office, I know it's well more than this now. There had been over 1,000 people who had submitted applications. Whether they will all qualify or not, I don't know. I think they were anticipating up to maybe 1,700 or more of those applications. And if that's the case, you know, we're certainly going to see a very large hit. And we understand there's going to be less money, but the problem that we have to do is we have to communicate to the citizens that if we have that much less money, we are going to be able to provide that much less service. And that's what seems to be missed at the legislative level with some of these programs is, yeah, we're going to cut government by doing that. Well, yeah, you're doing that, but you're cutting a lot of the funding that comes to the local level that's directly impacting the citizens. And we're the ones who are on that front line that are seeing that. So Assessor Davis, did you have the number? I'm sorry, with respect to what that is.
Currently it's 1,600 applications. Not that. There was a sunset date. What that passes or not is going to, but it's right now, go back build and
So just since that wasn't on the mic, there's Assessor Davis shared there's been 1,600 applications. Do you have a value as to what that impact would be for Sweetwater? You can get it. You don't have to have it right now, but okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Senator. I appreciate your taking the time to be here, and we look forward to working with you over the next few weeks as the legislative session begins and looking at some of these bills that will certainly affect us into the future. So thanks again.
Well, you're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Senator Kolb? Well, thanks for always coming over and reaching out and keeping the communication lines open. We appreciate that, and we'll continue to study as things move forward. Sounds like you'll be kicking things off next week, and we'll be there the following, I believe. So we'll look forward to learning more and working together.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the board. Happy New Year, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it. Morning, Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, again, I'll answer any questions. I will talk a little bit about property tax. We also do have the 50% off property tax bill. I'm told they're bringing it back again. I know it did get enough ballot signatures. We still have the same issues that we've had. 25% is horrific, but 50% is much worse. I think there are a lot of us that are approaching this cautiously, and we all need to be accountable for what the bills we pass. And a 50% off, I mean, that is ridiculous. And I do think the public does not understand what the implications are of that. It just sounds great. You get a 50% reduction in what you're going to pay. And I do think the people that were getting the ballot signatures are not truthful with the public. And they have no idea that the state will not be backfilling that. I'm told the bill that's coming up has no backfill. So a lot of bills right now are coming up this session. They're all stuck. A whole bunch of them are stuck with their fiscal note right now. So we don't even know what all is coming at us. Our LSO is backed up, and hopefully they can get some of the good bills moving forward. And I don't know if you have any other questions for me.
Thanks, Senator. I think part of those tax cuts that a lot of people don't realize is they look at it as an individual residential basis, but as you're well aware, the majority of our property tax goes to schools, and that's a huge cut for them. But as I understand it, you guys are mandated to pay for education regardless, right?
It's true. It's in the Constitution. We would have to do some sort of backfill for the schools, although I'm guessing if that were to happen, that also would be tightening their belt as well. And I don't know the complete implications of that. We did meet with the school districts and the community colleges just right before Christmas to kind of talk about some of the things that are upcoming and let Sweetwater County School District 1 and 2 and Western Wyoming Community College know that these things are coming and that they should start preparing. My approach for the budget is that I'm conservative, but I also know we have to be answerable for the actions that we take, and to come back here and to tell the residents of Sweetwater County that we've cut a lot of their services is not what I'm planning on doing, and I will not be voting for that.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Well, I'm elected to represent the county and its interests. It doesn't escape me that the tool that Wyoming provides residents to provide themselves with a lot of services are special districts. And that's probably a couple dozen here in Sweetwater County, hundreds across Wyoming. But the ones that really come to mind are, and something we've been dealing with in the last few meetings, is fire protection districts. We have Jamestown Rio Vista Fire District out here that operates on a budget of $27,000, and they take pretty much every dime of that and pay the city of Rock Springs to provide fire services for them. And I can guarantee that already today, that's not enough to pay for the services that they're getting from Green River. Now, if we take 25%, and God forbid, 50% of their budget, take them down to 13,500 or even 20,000. And that's all they have left to pay for fire service in their district, which we know isn't enough to cover the expenses involved. What incentive would Green River have to continue to provide those services, especially when they're going to be receiving cuts at the same time? I think the idea of reducing taxes is noble. I think property taxes aren't the best tax there is out there, but it's the tool that the Wyoming Constitution and the state legislature gives our local residents to provide themselves protective services. And if the legislature and if a ballot initiative wants to eliminate that funding source, then they can't do it in a vacuum. They have to provide a new solution to provide those services. Because if we don't have fire protection, we're all in trouble. If we don't have districts that can provide us quality water and sewer services, we're in trouble. If we can't take care of our roads, we're in trouble. We're not a community anymore. So if the legislature wants to do that, or if the people want to do that, they have to provide solutions to provide those services.
Commissioner Richards, I agree with you completely. And I would encourage the 5 of you and also your constituents to keep in touch with the elected officials from this county. I know there's newer ones coming in and they may not all understand the ramifications of some of this stuff that's going through. So I think your continued contact with all of them and all of us is going to be very important in the upcoming session. I will also tell you that our incoming Senate President, Bo Beitman, has been in touch with the committee chairs, and he is already working with a bunch of the committees. We've been going over the bills with them that are important to our committees. And so far, it looks like we have a really strong start in the Senate. And we've been working with him to let him know the bills that are important to not only our committees, but also to our counties. And so I am very hopeful for what the Senate looks like this year.
Commissioner Tolman?
Yes, I think we just need to remind the people, it's great if we can get a property tax reduction, but do we want to have the legislature have to come back in a couple of years and say, well, we're going to have an income tax, and we are one of the few states that does not have income tax. And maybe that's more equitable tax. Everybody gets hit, not just the property owners, but that is the true reality, which I hope we do not have to revert to.
Commissioner Tillman, I agree with you. We passed a very conservative budget last year, and but I think we need to be very responsible how we move forward from here. We can't cripple these counties, and the bottom line is a bunch of these counties will not sustain what we have, even what we've already passed, the 25% off. And I know we're trying to help the public, but it's not going to help anyone if their counties can't operate or if their citizens lose all their services.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Senator.
Thank you.
Appreciate you both coming over, and I think you came for a couple reasons, but nonetheless, we still appreciate it. So thanks, and good luck this session. We're still under county resident comments and concerns. If there's anyone else who would like to address the governing body, I figured Assessor Davis might be one.
Well, just congratulations, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify what Commissioner Senator Kolb was talking about, the 1,600 applications with the best information we have available right now, that number is about 1.1 or $1.2 million that will be not billed. That value will be exempted out. That taxpayer will not see that portion of that tax bill. And that does affect you. I mean, 17% of the property taxes that we collect is just, it goes back to the general county. So it is something where it is a big deal and it's going to have effect. And to Commissioner Richards' point, another thing to keep in mind is a lot of those special districts, like the Jamestown Fire District, there's not any industrial property there. There's no minerals there. So the vast majority of their valuation is made up of residential property. Same thing with a lot of the special districts that are close to the municipalities. There are no minerals there. So it's something where there's no industrial property, there's no industrial equipment, and there's no minerals. So their valuations are going to be hit substantially with this. Now, I know the Department of Revenue is really, really good about providing information to the LSO, all the fiscal notes that are on the bills as they're presented. But a lot of times that stuff moves so fast, it's hard for them to come up with good information on the fly as these bills are being amended over and over and over. But they do the best they can. But just to clarify, last year we had a 4% cap on residential improvements. that exempted anything above a 4% increase, no backfill. 2025, we're adding a 4% cap on the land as well. Again, no backfill. And there's no sunset date on that legislation. So 2025, the long-term homeowners exemption Commissioner Slaughter was talking about, 65 years old, pay taxes in Wyoming for 25 years and live in the house for 8 months. There's no backfill, and the sunset date was removed in the last revenue committee. So that sunset date that was going to expire in 2027 is now gone. The property tax refund program, which I personally feel is the best vehicle to help people with property taxes because it is income-based. That one, of the $20 million that was funded in the biennium, they spent 14 million in the first year. So it is part of the supplemental budget, and I hope our delegation will actually be in favor of the increase that the Department of Revenue has asked for that. Because that doesn't affect you at all. That's not county dollars. That is all state revenue that's actually done to process those refunds. The other thing that they had done in the last session is they doubled the veterans exemption. So that went from $3,000 in assessed value to $6,000 in assessed value. And all of these are good programs and they help a lot of people. Now, the Assessors Association, just so you know, the legislature has been very vocal about supporting the bill that the governor vetoed last time. And that's the 25% of the first 2 million of value of a home. We're hoping that the legislature will basically pick a lane. You know, if you're going to do the 4% cap, do the 4% cap and don't do the 25%. There were some flaws in the 4% cap. It really did help bigger homes. I mean, if the intent was to help the little old lady on Social Security who was a widow, who was having trouble paying her tax bill, the 4% cap did not help her. It did not. It's all based on dollar per square foot. Homes are smaller, they're older. They didn't see a 4% increase in a lot of those instances. So that legislation, although it had good intent, it didn't help the people that it was probably targeted for. If they're going to do something, I think the 25% is the better vehicle to help people all across the board. And again, I'm a big proponent, and the system wasn't broken. It was fine the way it was, but people needed some help. That's why I'm such a big advocate for the refund program. But I mentioned this yesterday at the Pulse meeting. I'm hoping the legislature, like I said, pick a lane, let the 4% expire, put the sunset date back on, and then put the 25% bill in place next year. I think that's a smoother way to do it, easier to explain to the taxpayer. And it's something that, again, we would always lobby for the backfill, but it is something where it is going to affect budgets. There's no doubt about it. So I would stand for any questions.
Thanks, Dave. So going back to your opening comments, I believe you said roughly be 1.1 to 1.2 million of the value exempted,
Correct.
and 17% of that was for
The 12
county.
for the 12 mil. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'd be looking 204,000 if you
Correct.
use the 1.2 figure.
Correct. And again, residential property for us is about 11% of our total valuation. There are counties that have 40 or 50% of their value is residential property. And that's something where they don't ever get that back. I mean, they don't have the cycles we do with oil and gas going up and down. They don't ever get the benefit of that. They just rely on residential property. And when you take that much away, that's really going to affect those little counties. There's no doubt about it. And that's what I mentioned yesterday too, was that, you know, it's not, you can't pick and choose where you do this. It's one size fits all. And what works, what we can maybe survive because of our minerals and our industry, other counties maybe can't.
Questions or comments, commissioners? Thanks for the data, Dave. We appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be discussing more as
Yes,
things
we
take
will.
place next
Yes,
week.
we will. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. We are still under county resident comments and concerns. If there's anyone else that would like to address the governing body, it's your final chance. Going once. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the county residents' comments and concerns portion of the agenda. Thanks all for being here and keeping the conversations rolling. This is going to bring us to tab B, commissioners, which is the consent agenda. Before you this morning are 6 items. First being the approval of the December 17th, 2024 meeting minutes. Second being the approval of the county vouchers, warrants, expenditure approval listing, and the commissioner's report. Third is the approval of bonds. Fourth, approval of hospital maintenance expenditures. 5, a request to ratify a letter of support for Fire Warden Adams to pursue an AIM grant application to fund Sweetwater County Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And 6 is a ratification of protest for the 2021 Greater Sage Grouse Land Use Plan Amendment. Commissioners, I would ask if there's any requests to remove any of these items off of the consent agenda. Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. This is going to bring us right into commissioner comments. We are right on track. So at this time, Commissioner Richards, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's been a relatively light load since our last meeting, which is good because I spent a good portion of the holiday break with the flu and pneumonia, so I didn't get much done. I did get a few things done, though. On the 18th, I attended a housing task force meeting as well as a SEDS update. On the topic of SEDS, after consultation with the Economic Development Administration, grants manager Marshall's advised us that she doesn't believe it will qualify for a grant to fund a new SEDS through the EDA. So SCDC Director McDonald and Chairman Cowan will work with UN and Lincoln County Economic Development Coordinators to look for other options. I'm not sure which direction we'll take going forward, but I'll keep all of you apprised. On the 20th, I joined all of you in welcoming Governor Gordon to Sweetwater County to declare January 5th as Nellie Taylor Ross Day. It was a fantastic presentation, and I want to thank the governor, the museum board, the museum foundation board, as well as the students from Green River High School that worked together to make it such a success. Following that, I joined all of you for a discussion with the governor regarding the BLM's Rock Springs RMP. For folks that aren't aware, coincidentally enough, the BLM published the record of decision for the RMP on that very same day. In fact, just minutes before the meeting, we were apprised of it. I want to thank Governor Gordon for a good discussion and being willing to work with Sweetwater County and standing up for the people of this community and against federal overreach and the blatant mismanagement of the RMP process. I believe that it was a productive discussion, which included all of us, the governor and his staff, as well as several of our then incumbent legislative members that represent Sweetwater County. It was productive until the governor graciously, I would say, attempted to include some of the legislator-elects that were present in the discussion, as well as allow some input from a Rock Springs City Councilman-elect. I don't want to attack all of them. I know most of them mean well and have a lot to learn about how government operates and the constraints that we all operate under. But some of the comments that were made to the governor were just ridiculous. And I think that's going to be a theme in my comments today is the word ridiculous. It brought to mind Proverbs 17:28, which reads, "Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue." Mark Twain is credited with saying it another way, which was, "It's better to keep your mouth closed and let people think you're a fool to open it and remove all doubt." I would say that they would have all been better off to hold their tongues, especially the newly elected representative for House District 48, who in his own words stated that he does not have the temperament to do the job he was elected for. He proved it when he demonstrated his utter lack of decorum, as well as disrespect for the governor, for the other elected officials present, and most of all for the people of Sweetwater County, whose house he was a guest in at the time. Later at a restaurant, I heard him bragging that he earned dirty looks in the room for his witty remarks to the governor. I can assure you the dirty looks he received had nothing to do with his wit. Do better. Moving on throughout the week, Land Use Director Bingham and Chief Deputy County Attorney DeLeon worked diligently on our applications for industrial siting impact funds for the Kemper Power Station Unit 1 project. As I related to you at the last meeting, the applicant amended their application to increase the materials purchases, thereby increasing the pool of impact funds available to local governments to address the impacts. That resulted in a scramble for Lincoln County to amend the MOU that we'd already approved, which wasn't easy with the deadlines falling during the week of Christmas break. An MOU was successfully adopted, though, and impacted municipalities within Sweetwater County have continued to agree that Sweetwater County will be the sole government entity making applications for those funds. We all attended a pre-hearing conference in Kemmer on the 3rd, and we'll be attending the actual industrial siting application hearing on the 13th. It will be a strange hearing because the applicant was granted a protection order by the court declaring some of the information in their application to be considered trade secrets. So at this point, we can't publicly disclose how much in impact funds are available, and I don't know when that information will be made public. It appears that much of phase 2 of the hearing will likely be conducted in executive session, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. Because we were on our way to Kemmer, I was unable to attend the federal partners meeting on the 3rd at the Rock Springs Chamber of Commerce. I was able to attend a portion of it remotely until we lost service while driving. I did stay on long enough to hear the BLM field office manager make a statement regarding what she claimed was disinformation coming from locally elected officials regarding the Rock Springs RMP. I will let my fellow commissioners who were in attendance give the details, but I do want to say that I found her gaslighting of the RMP process and the cooperators to be downright disgusting. Two of the statements that she made really stood out to me. The first was when she said there were always going to be, quote, significantly more restrictions in the Red Desert area, unquote, indicating to me that the outcomes of the RMP were predetermined and that the BLM never really cared what the cooperators had to say in the process. Something she clarified with the other thing that she said of note, which was that she couldn't care less whether the cooperators trusted her. I think her actions throughout the process proves that out. I hope as President Trump reassesses the future of the BLM, her role in the Rock Springs field office will be duly scrutinized, and we can get a field manager that we can trust. Also going forward, tomorrow is a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. There are 3 hearings, all of which I believe are related to the development of a Maverick across the street from the Love's Truck Stop. On the 9th, I'll attend an SEDC advisory board meeting. On the 13th, I'll attend the industrial siting hearing in Kemmer. Then later that night, the Reliance Fire District is holding a meeting at the Reliance Fire Hall at 7 p.m. I hope to be back in time from Kemmer to attend, but that depends on how late the hearing goes. They are facing some issues, and while I want to be clear that those issues are not the responsibility of this board to solve, nor do we have any legal oversight, I do want to be there to help in any way that I can. I would hope that one of you would consider attending just in case I can't be there, though. Speaking of fire districts that are facing challenges, I did some research on statutes governing special districts, but it looks like Chairman West has been working on that issue at Jamestown Rio Vista also, and I look forward to hearing from him how that's being resolved. I believe that is all I have for you today, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to stand for any comments or questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the report. Comments or questions, commissioners?
That was a lot of work for being sick.
A lot of time to think. No, I don't have a whole lot to say, but I that's what we've been dealing with, the attitude of not being able to care less of what the local cooperators think, I think pretty much tells the tale on the process we've been faced with over the last 2 years. So it's a wonder there's a lack of trust or willingness to work together. That's pretty lack of professionalism.
Try more than 2 years, please.
12, I know, yeah. Commissioner Jones, floor is yours.
How many years I have here, but I'll try. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 18th of December, I attended the Memorial Hospital Sweetwater County Quality Committee meeting. Quality continues to improve at the hospital, so that's always good news. Went over several reports as we do on a monthly basis. So there are always areas of concern that need to be worked on, but there are definitely improvements taking place. Also on the 18th, I attended the museum board meeting. The Nellie Taylor Ross proclamation and meeting with the governor was the main topic. On the 19th, I attended the Joint Powers Telecom board meeting, just normal business discussed there. Nothing too exciting. On the 20th, along with all of you, as was mentioned, we were here for the proclamation signed by the governor, and then also the BLM discussion afterwards. I don't think I can add a whole lot more to Commissioner Richards' comments other than that was embarrassing. And my apologies to the governor. Also on the 20th, along with all of you, let's see, sorry, I jumped backwards. We took the rest of the year to celebrate Christmas and New Year's with family and some great friends. So that wrapped up 2024, then on January 3rd. Also attended the federal partners meeting. Not exactly sure what to say other than what Commissioner Richards said, so I hate to say me too, but was just really saddening to see the rude, condescending, dishonest, and unprofessional comments and actions on behalf of the BLM. I really had hoped that we were probably to the point where the RMP was in the hands of Washington, DC, and the fight was over amongst all of us. But evidently that's not the case. Evidently the local office, or at least the field manager, I shouldn't include everybody, but the field manager here would like to continue the fight. The "I don't care if you trust me" comment was shocking, to say the least. Just disappointing. Evidently, she doesn't want to move forward and try and work for good things for Sweetwater County. Just the opposite is her goal. So, and that conversation took place probably less than 5 minutes into the meeting. So it didn't build up over the course of the meeting. She came out swinging right away. Just incredibly disgusting and unprofessional, in my opinion. She made some comments that I think were at least in part directed towards Commissioner Tillman and I about having political conversations and having misinformation and using the RMP to raise funds for our campaign. That was particularly insulting because while I spent a lot of time talking about and working on the RMP, it was not a fundraiser. In fact, not one person gave me 1 penny that I know of, but it was because of what we dealt with the BLM and the RMP. I did speak out about that frequently because it was such a horrible plan and so devastating to Sweetwater County. And I continue to do so. And I'm not raising any money today. So it has nothing to do with that, but it does have to do with the fact that I want to do what's right for the residents of Sweetwater County. Now, if she views that as campaigning on the backs of the BLM, that's her opinion, but that's what I feel my job is as a commissioner, and that's what I'll continue to do. So she can either jump on board and try and have a positive impact or choose to continue the path she's taken. Yesterday, I attended the Pulse meeting where the reports from many of our legislators that are here, community colleges, mining, and the Business Alliance. On a sad note, I would mention that Bert Smith of Green River passed away this week. Bert was a good friend and a businessman in Green River for 40 years. Bert was a huge supporter of motorized recreation and donated untold hours and dollars to the Sweetwater Snowpokes, amongst other organizations. He was a member here locally since the 70s. Bert was also well-known statewide, and he'll be sorely missed. So rest in peace, my friend. On a happier note, I would like to thank the voters of Sweetwater County for trusting me and represent them as county commissioner. I plan to work hard, work for positive results, and I look forward to working with 4 of you in the future. I've appreciated our time together. You're a great group, and I think we're all here for the right reasons, so that's important. I will not be attending our next meeting, as I, along with my family, will be attending the inauguration for President Trump, and I'll be traveling back from Washington, D.C. at the time of our meeting. So that concludes my comments.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate your report, and congratulations on being officially official.
Thank you.
Comments for Commissioner Jones? Commissioner Richards?
I just want to point out that Commissioner Jones, you won't be here at our next meeting. That is also the meeting we'll be assigning liaison duties. So good luck.
Yeah. Rookie move.
Wow. Didn't think that one through.
Any other comments?
I don't know which is more important, however.
If not, it looks like I'm up next. Already quite a bit redundant from both of your reports, so I apologize for that. I'll try and refrain here and there. took a couple weeks off, but starting on Friday the 20th, I too was in attendance for the Nellie Taylor Ross Proclamation Day celebration. Thought the museum board and staff did a great job putting that together. And I helped welcome Governor Gordon, who was invited to read and sign the proclamation. I thought it was a good turnout and something positive for the community for once.
And thank the kids.
And certainly the Bridget Nelson's high school class. Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Later that afternoon, obviously, we all met with the governor and members of his office, as well as our local delegation and local elects. I don't have a whole lot more to share there. As Commissioner Richards, I believe, stated moments before that meeting, we learned about the record of decision that came out with the RMP. And so that was pretty much the main course of topic to be discussed. And I thought started out great and ended not so great. And, there's a lot of us that have been heavily involved with that process, some for 2 years, some for 12 or 20 plus years. But regardless, there's a lot that goes into that process. And, for a newcomer, we've all been there before, but I think it's best that we sit back and take it all in and educate ourselves before, trying to take a stance and argue an issue that is somewhat irrelevant to the topic of the conversation. So I too apologize to the governor. It felt like that meeting was hijacked and a totally inappropriate ending, but such is the way it is. Like I mentioned, the next couple of weeks, I escaped out of county, had some relaxing time over the holidays with family and friends, which made for a very lengthy Monday yesterday, but I'm eager to kickstart 2025 off and keep our foot on the gas pedal as we continue to work together as a team. Yesterday morning, I attended a virtual meeting with the WCCA Board of Directors. Unfortunately, most of that meeting took place in executive session, so I can't express anything there, but I did want to share that everyone is anxious to hear we will all be in attendance in Cheyenne in a couple weeks for the legislative session and obviously for WCCA meetings. And they've got new leadership that has taken over, as some of you may be aware. And so it'll be good to see all those neighboring counties. Yesterday afternoon, I spent some time sorting through the Jamestown Rio Vista Fire District predicament that was brought to our attention at our December 17th meeting. After that meeting, I had a couple individuals reach out expressing interest in serving. And so I was working together with Attorney De Leon, and I even had Sally help me out, where I assumed we would be appointing some of these members. And so we made applications available on the website and studied the different statutes. I know Commissioner Richards had a heavy hand in researching some of that over the break. And so I was just trying to, establish a path forward, because some of the different statutes require that there's a 30-day window depending on when a vacancy is declared. And so, it could be argued that we had notice at the last meeting, but there's a lot of different gray areas with that. And in the meantime, because there were no elected officials in the last election, those current sitting board members were going to continue on until there was a replacement. So there's lots of different statutes when it comes to appointments of special districts, dissolutions of special districts, and obviously, we were asked to help. So I tried to take that on yesterday, and after 3 or 4 hours, I finally got in touch with some of those sitting members and was told that they already have a plan. And so it was a waste of a day, but they have had 3 individuals step forward that would like to serve. I mentioned that the couple I had heard from, could contact them. And I guess more competition is a good thing when they went from not having anyone that was willing to serve. So their intent is to meet sometime this week to appoint at least 1, if not 2 members. One of the current sitting members, obviously, is the Secretary Treasurer, and his bond is due, I believe, this month. And so his thoughts are, rather than renewing that bond, to appoint a replacement, make that individual the Secretary Treasurer, to then start fresh with a new bond. And so they're looking to appoint 1 or 2, and then in the weeks to follow, another one. I think more or less they want to make sure that they have a good fit and that everything's going to be left in good hands. So with that, I think that's positive, and I commend them for taking it among themselves. I thank the press for helping us out, because I think some of those articles shed some light on the importance of those districts. And so that's all good news. I did discuss briefly with Commissioner Richards last night and this morning again with County Attorney Deputy De Leon, that it appears they're handling it all on themselves, which is good, but it would probably be, I guess, more official for us to ratify those, just so there's no question and we have it on record. So we'll probably look for that for our next meeting. And I plan to reach out to Mr. Dave Bowler either today or tomorrow and kind of explain that we would like to have those appointments ready by the 21st. So that's where that's at. Aside from that, it's a pretty short report for me. As Commissioner Richards just mentioned, obviously, the second meeting is usually when we discuss liaison duties. It's been a couple of years. I know some are anxious to make some changes in that regard. So I have a rough draft, but obviously it's not up to me. It's up to all of us. So if you have some ideas or thoughts or wishes, come forward and we'll try and get that prepared for the next meeting. If there's some you don't want, sounds like we can dump those on Commissioner Jones, so that's convenient. And we'll try and sort through that for the next coming years. So at that time, I look forward to kicking off another year with you all. It's hard to believe that 2 were gone and we're on number 3 as far as when I came in office. So it's been a great experience and I look forward to another year serving as your chair. I'd stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Jones.
do I get to see that rough draft or is it all just a surprise?
We'll show you on the 22nd.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Commissioner Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the 20th, I too attended the ceremony recognizing Nellie Taylor Ross as the first woman governor of the state. The one thing that I'll add that I found interesting was that the class, Bridget Nielsen's class, actually wrote the proclamation for the event. And I thought that was really kind of a neat touch that they had done that. I had a granddaughter who was in that class and we had her family over for dinner on Sunday. She was still talking about the experience. So it was something that made a lasting impression on her and was really quite a moving ceremony, I think. Also, as previously mentioned, we then met with the governor. I have the same feelings that the other commissioners do. I don't think that we need to beat a dead horse with respect to that. So it was very disappointing to see some of the things that took place that day. I then took a few days and traveled to New Mexico to celebrate the holidays and help our oldest son enjoy his 50th birthday. Hard to imagine that's the case. It was an excellent trip with great food, great company, games, and I even got a few hours of target shooting in with my son and my 13-year-old grandson. On the 27th, I spent the morning trying to firm up some of the details of the congressional tour that will be visiting Sweetwater County on August 6th. I was unable to speak with a couple of the principals that will be critical in implementing our plans for that day. I was able to speak with representatives of the Trona industry that will be happy to assist us with tours of their facilities on that day. I have subsequently received messages from some of the other entities and I'm working to get a better handle on the events of that day. I'll be participating in the next meeting of the 4 counties on Friday morning. I did get a call back from one of those principals just as we were starting our meeting today. So some of those calls are starting to come in and hopefully we'll get some of those things tied together fairly soon. On the 31st, I attended the New Year's party lunch at the Golden Hour Senior Citizen Center. The staff and volunteers did a great job of decorating and serving a very nice steak dinner and creating a party atmosphere. There was a very large crowd that appeared to really enjoy themselves. Golden Hour Senior Center canceled its board meeting that would have been regularly scheduled for that afternoon. They will hold their next regular meeting at the end of January. On the 3rd, I too participated in the federal partners meeting. The highlight of the meeting, and I'll state that somewhat facetiously, was the BLM's report on the Rock Springs RMP record of decision. We have beaten that horse also. I think the one thing that I came away with, and one of the comments that I made on the call was, I feel is very sad that we cannot trust a federal partner. And that's one of the situations that became very apparent with her body language, her speaking as quickly as she was, the nervousness that she showed in basically reprimanding some of the local elected officials of our area for some of the things that she felt had been done during that time. I was very disappointed once again with how that took place. I'm sure we will talk a little bit more about that later today. Trinity Lewis of Congresswoman Hagman's staff also reported that morning that the Congresswoman had been sworn in for her term earlier that morning. That was certainly of note. I spent the rest of that morning working on various issues dealing with the specific purpose tax. The trustee bank had updated the prior month's transactions. I noticed that a couple of requisitions that had been approved had not been paid and that the money was still being held at the bank. After a couple of phone calls, the transfers were approved and I was assured the money would be in the correct accounts immediately. Enough said on that also. On the 6th, I made follow-up calls on some of the details for the congressional tour. I should be receiving further information later this week in time for the meeting of the 4 counties on Friday. The Forest Service has scheduled a cooperators meeting for Thursday on the Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area. It has been canceled as the federal offices will be closed to honor former President Jimmy Carter. I'll watch for the new date that they schedule that meeting. I also received notice yesterday that the UW Extension Office had filled its youth development position. After the interviews that Commissioner Tolman and I participated in, Natasha Holtmeyer was offered the position and will begin her new position on April the 8th. I also received an invitation to a capital committee meeting that will be held this Friday. And Monday, I will conduct the monthly specific purpose tax joint power board meeting and then see what the upcoming week has in store. Yesterday, I also had my regular monthly meeting with Public Works Director Legursky. His biggest complaint is that the weather has been too good and it's creating some issues for some of our county roads. His staff has been working diligently to keep the roads up to standard. I also brought up the idea of setting up a working group this spring to work on issues with the trap clubs, shooting, and archery ranges. Mr. Legursky is willing to participate and believes that that is a worthy concept. He also submitted his monthly report to us as he does each month. And if I can find it real quick, I will read it, Mr. Chairman. If not, I have a hard copy. Looks like I am resigned to a hard copy. Buildings. The White Mountain Library, third time as a charm bid was held last month and we had one responsive bidder. This award will be brought before the board during the January 21st, 2025 meeting. The other projects at the C Street Library and County Library are in the paperwork stage. We should hopefully have all of this completed by the end of this week so that a notice to proceed can be issued on both of these projects. The Southwest Counseling Durand project kicked off last week after the Christmas break. Paradise Flooring has started on the flooring prep, and then at the end of the month, the electrical and mechanical subs will start their rough-in work. The Southwest Counseling Washakie project will start in the middle of January. The Southwest Counseling staff was able to combine patrons into another space so that both the Durand and Washakie houses could be under construction at the same time. Southwest Counseling Ankeny House project also started after the Christmas break. The contractor is working on the ceilings, waterproofing, and other roof-related work. The electrical and mechanical subs will start their work toward the end of this month. The Southwest Counseling Jonah Modular project is in the submittal process and will start later this month. Grote House is still working on the demolition of the concrete floor in the Fleet building. They hope to begin pouring concrete in this building the first week of February. Demolition in the main building is almost complete. They will start framing walls and stairs in the next couple of weeks. The Rock Springs Youth Home is 99% complete. The project went slower than expected with our subcontractor. However, the project went well and the end result was worth it. The Detention Center RTU AHU project is in the beginning stages of contracts, submittals, and timelines. We will have a pre-construction meeting later this month once everything is in place. The maintenance crew handled 66 work order requests in December. Road and Bridge Department, the warm weather is causing problems on our heavily used gravel roads. There's been an increase in truck traffic, and without the moisture and freezing temperatures, we are having to reconstruct portions of the roads and haul water in the middle of winter to help stabilize and recompact these areas. We had to reapply magnesium chloride to a couple miles of County Road number 23 North, the Wamsutter Crooks Gap North, before Christmas due to the same issues. Crews are also taking advantage of the warm weather to replace and clean cattle guards, signs, delineators, and other safety devices. We're also continuing to haul rotomill tailings to various roads to help stabilize soft spots and other areas that are susceptible to washboarding. Engineering department staff is working on designing 3 large culvert replacement projects for the year. We received the County Road 15 9-mile road reconstruction project contract. Nothing has been scheduled on this project. However, the contractor has indicated they would like to start as soon as the weather and temperatures allow. Staff is also working on the preliminary scoping of our normal maintenance projects for this upcoming construction season. These include dust control, paint striping, crack sealing, and possible overlay or chip seal. We're also developing preliminary costs and scopes for a cold central plant recycling project. This would be a great use of the rotomill that we have received from Wyoming DOT and may provide a lower cost alternative to hot plant asphalt paving on our lower ADT roads that are north of Rock Springs and in Jamestown. With that, Mr. Chairman, I end my report and would submit to any questions.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate the report. Questions or comments for Commissioner Slaughter? If not, Commissioner Tillman, you're batting cleanup today.
Well, that should help shorten my report. Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks to the voters for reelecting Taylor and I. We look forward to serving you for another 4 years, or at least I do. I offer a challenge to my fellow commissioners. We get bogged down in the day-to-day, but I would like to see us in the next few months look at a strategic plan. What are the issues we'll be facing that aren't just the day-to-day things? And I invite the staff and department heads to give us information to help us prioritize and identify some issues that we're going to be facing. I think we all know what some of those are, but I would like to see us do a formal identification of some bigger issues than getting bogged down in the day-to-day. So that's my challenge to my fellow commissioners. Okay, since the last meeting on the 17th, after our last meeting, I attended the Young at Heart Senior Center Board meeting. They're working with a consultant on their strategic plan. I also attended Lieutenant Michelle Hall's retirement party. We're going to miss her. I'm sure the sheriff and the county attorney are really going to miss her. On the 18th, I attended the airport board meeting. They heard their 2024 audit. It was presented with no major discrepancies. They're working on network upgrade with LR Communications for a little over $5,000. They approved an agreement with Mead and Hunt for air service consulting services for $7,550, seeking enhanced air service with major air carriers. So they're hiring help to find other opportunities for this airport. They approved amendment number 1 to the ARPA Water and Sewer Grant Agreement with the Office of State Lands in the amount of $131,161. This will offset local match money for that project. On the 19th, I attended the Coalition of Local Governments meeting in Lyman. Numerous issues. They're all of our federal issues that we're dealing with. It used to be a half a page agenda. It is now 3-4 pages of topics. We talked about Rocky Mountain Power and some of the things happening there with the rate increases. The notice to convert Naughton Unit 1 and 2 from coal to natural gas with the ability to comment intervene by December 20th. I report this because it's on the horizon for Bridger also, so we need to keep aware of that. We talked about oil and gas leasing, carbon storage projects, Sage Grouse Plan amendments. We ratified our comments today, but those will not be finalized before Trump comes into office. So there may be hope on the horizon there. Talked about the RMP, the wild horse issues are ongoing. There's several lawsuits in the works, but they are also planning to do gathers in the Adobe town, about 5,000 excess horses over a 3-year period. BLM Western Solar Programmatic EIS and RMP amendment, and no update on that, but that I think is pretty well gone through. Talked about Pacific Toronto Dry Creek Jackalope Wind Energy Project is the next one on the horizon. Don't be laughing. There are issues and comments, and I think Taylor has been working with a cooperator. We have an MOU that we need to sign at our next meeting or ratify. Taylor, do you want to be listed as a lead, I suppose, on that one? And Eric Bingham. So when you get that one, I guess we need to check and make sure who the contacts are. Ashley National Forest, well, at our federal partners meeting, Charette Bonomo did give us an update. They had planned to have a public meeting on the 9th. for the new Flaming Gorge National Recreation Area plan. That plan is out with the cooperators and they'll reschedule that public meeting. I'm not sure when. They're also working on the buckboard issues on an EA for that area. The Bridger Teton Plan revision, there was a meeting scheduled for the 9th. I'm not sure that's still going on. Danielle Betancourt is working on an MOU with all of us signing that MOU, because at the coalition meeting, the comment was that they do not wish to hear from any counties who don't own property or don't own a part of Bridger Teton in their county. So we may get some pushback on that one, even though we are heavily involved with what happens in that plan. The Forest Service Old Growth Plan amendments got pulled off the board once Trump was elected, so that was good news. Pushed back to the local level, it appears, hopefully. We talked about critical habitat for the Canada lynx. The Upper Green River has been officially redesignated to be in attainment status on air quality. Commissioner Richards as the air quality representative. Anyway, those are the issues we discuss once a month in detail, in depth with our attorney, and then she writes the legally defensible, scientifically credible comments for the administrative record. On the 20th, I did attend the proclamation for Nellie Taylor Ross and the meeting with the governor. I won't repeat all of that, but it was a great event, and I wish to thank everyone involved. Museum and the students and the governor. We also met with Governor Gordon to discuss issues. I am concerned that they are not releasing the federal National Resource Policy account money. No money has been released since July. That upsets me. We're told to fight these battles. There is money appropriated by the legislature and we're having great difficulty collecting it. So I'm just putting that out there. I met with Randy Shipman, who was the former county conservation district supervisor. And I did share some links to some major, not legislation, it's behind the scenes things that they're doing to us that is so frightening. And it's a lot to comprehend. He's studied the Federal Register daily. He studies that to try to pull out issues and work with other states to fight these battles for us that are not in the forefront where anybody could see what's happening. They're talking about natural assets, making that a tradable commodity like the air you breathe. You're going to be getting credits and you could sell the air above your property and some of those kinds of issues. It's frightening. The climate change agenda, I also shared that with you. It's a climate change agenda, a paper for policymakers. All of the scary things that have been happening are kind of outlined in that paper. I did take 5 days off, spent with my mother. We brought her from the nursing home to the ranch, so that was a nice time. I didn't get any work done, however. Attended the New Year's Eve party at Farson, quite a lively event with a lot of county residents from Rock Springs and Green River, so that was great. On the 3rd, I attended the federal partners meeting. I'll be polite. What'd you say about, if you can't say anything nice, don't say it at all. Well, that's what I said. It's difficult. I mean, we're going to be quoted again. I suppose that we are not all happy with the RMP. And she says it's because we didn't read it. Well, I'll tell you what, I spent several hours this holiday trying to read 563 pages. And I know Eric and John, they breathe that for us. So thank you very much. We'll hear more today. Charette Bonhomme will provide the Ashland National Forest update and the recreation plan, as I just mentioned. We did get word on the UW extension, so they have hired a 4-H educator, so that's great. And they're going to hire a AmeriCorps interim person to keep the office open till April 8th when Natasha Holtmeyer assumes her duties. Yesterday, I met with Alan Adams. He did a building permit inspection for my new house in Farson, but we also had great discussions about the fire issues, and I appreciated his insights, and I am happy that we ratified the letter for him to seek community wildfire protection plan fundings to hire a consultant in. And I thank you for reaching out, trying to get funding, and I hope you can find some more grants so we don't have to cough up too much money, more money. But so that was very helpful. So thank you, Mr. Adams. I appreciate that. Upcoming, I have airport board next Wednesday, and I have coalition again on the 16th. The following week, we go to Cheyenne after our meeting. So thank you. Looking forward to another great year. I am so proud to serve with this board. They are the greatest. I've served on a lot of boards in my life, and this is the best. They are the very best. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Toman. Appreciate your report. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the Bridger Teton, I understand the argument that we don't own land up there necessarily, but I think the uniqueness to it is that the vast majority of people from Sweetwater County recreate in the Bridger Teton or own a cabin in that general area. So, you know, whatever the case may be, I just think it's very disingenuous to not want to include us just because we don't live there. That's pretty much any type of recreation, whether you're mountain biking, snow machining, whatever it is people do it in the BT. So that's irritating to hear, not surprising, but irritating. And so we'll see, I guess, but I'm on a working group for the motorized community that maybe kind of goes around that, whether or not we own property. But
Okay, could I respond?
no, I'm still talking.
Oh, okay.
I'm done.
You looked like you were through. That's why I love them so much. They're so considerate. As I am. That's why I brought the topic of the BT, because in a coalition meeting, and I asked Danielle to prepare the MOU because I figured had to be a little stronger than us requesting on a letter saying we want to be cooperators. So she'll outline all the issues and points. And I think maybe it might be good for you to call her and outline some of those as she prepares that MOU for us to approve at our next meeting. And it was recommended that all 5 of us sign that letter requesting cooperator status on the Bridger Teton National Plan. I've already cooperated in that planning process, and I have a notebook in my office. It's about 4 inches thick. And then the process got stopped. For about 10 years, it's been sitting idle. So now they're kicking it off again, trying to get a plan in place. And it is important that we're at the table. We have too many people and constituents in this county who recreate, graze, I don't know what else you can do, but there are a lot of things you can do on the Bridger Teton National Forest, and we should not be left out of the process. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions for Commissioner Toman's report?
What about leaving the 2 of us and Eric as the contacts on the MOU?
Yeah.
Taylor and I and Eric, is that all right with everyone?
Of the
Bridger Teton. Taylor, yeah, you're fine.
We'll address that. Thanks for your report, Commissioner. That concludes the commissioner comments portion of the agenda. We fell behind quite a bit there, so we are going to take a 12-minute break, which is up on our agenda next, and we'll resume here at 10:40. All right, we'll call this meeting back to order. Where we left off was tab C. We were on item number 2, which is the 2025 newspaper of record designation. At this time, we have 2 applications, the first being the Rocket Miner. Would you like to share anything, Ann, or just read what's in the packet? Okay, very good. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like we have Brian online.
We do actually. Thank you, commissioners. Do appreciate it. I also have with me Flo McDonald, who is our legal clerk for the Rocket Miner, and I'm going to have her kind of walk you through the steps and then answer any questions that you might have. So, Flo, it's all yours.
All right. Good morning, and thank you for giving us the time to meet with you today and go over what we have to offer. We would look forward to working with you again, of course. We bring to the table this morning, we're going to start out at the $5 per column inch like we offered last year. We did have a little bit of change in our bid, on our bid form since the 13th. Our deadlines have stretched out to Friday at 11:30 for Wednesday's publication. So just a little bit of change on that one. We also are willing to extend the buy one, get one ads for anything other than legals. Do you have any questions or concerns that we could go over with you?
Questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Flo, thanks for joining us. Last year, we went with your competitor mostly for the reason that we'd had so many struggles with getting things published. We'd received a lot of feedback from staff with publication problems, and we had cases where applicants actually were delayed a month in their planning and zoning processes because things weren't published on time. What I don't see is anything stating what's changed on your behalf to solve those problems.
Commissioner, if it would be all right, I'd like to go ahead and answer that. I am the regional ad director, so I handle a couple of papers here in Rock Springs. Last time that we had the opportunity to work for you, we had a computer system that was not, in my humble opinion, something that was worthy of the publications that we've had. We have since changed computer systems, which has made life a heck of a lot easier. Our error ratio over the last 24 months has been down next to nothing. Now, the minute I tell you that is going to be the time that I do run into an error, but I think our new system right now has really changed any of the errors or issues that we might have. Another thing is Flo has got 20 plus years of working in the legal industry here, working with entities like yourself, and she's really committed to being able to make sure that we are able to give you fantastic, wonderful service right there. So, and then the other thing is that I went to bat today because I do know that deadlines had also been one of the problems there. And I went to our folks today and told them that the deadlines that they had just were not going to work for me, meaning they weren't going to work for you, because we wanted to be able to give you folks as much time as possible to be able to get them there. So again, I know it's asking for a little bit of a leap of faith right there, but I can assure you over the last 24 months, we have had next to no issues when it comes to not getting ads into the paper, billing issues, running the wrong ad on the wrong date or anything like that. Right now, our computer system is pretty good about making sure we get that done. And the other thing is Flo does an amazing job now. We have what is called a dummy or a run sheet. Feel free to insert joke there when I said dummy, but it's a nice sheet right there, and Flo is able to check off everything to make sure that everything on the day that it's supposed to run is running and running correctly when it's supposed to run and how it's supposed to run and that sort of thing. Another thing that I will tell you, that a service that we've offered for a lot of entities, just not you folks, but everyone, we take a lot of the raw data right now and we go ahead and process it for you for free. So you don't have to worry about typing up the minutes or anything like that. We can go ahead and take care of all of that sort of stuff for you. If you give us access to the raw data, Flo can go ahead and format that for you, get that taken care of, get a proof over to your team over there so they get a chance to look at it. So I think it's an opportunity maybe to save a little bit of the workflow that you have on your end right there. And we're committed to doing that, not just for you, but for any government entity or any entity that needs to provide place illegal into our publications right there. So I'm trying to go the really kind of reinvent ourselves and really kind of go the extra way in terms of customer service that we provide, because we value you as a client, as an entity there, and would very much like the opportunity to be able to earn your business back.
We also work very closely with the city of Rock Springs, and we've worked with them with their minutes, getting them condensed so it's a little smaller, because we know legals sometimes get very large and then they get spendy. So we worked very closely with them, and I believe they're very happy with us as well. And we would look forward for the opportunity to get your business back this year.
Thank you both. Any additional questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Slaughter?
one other question. One thing that I did not see in the literature that we received in our packet was the circulation. Do you have the numbers on what your circulation is?
Yes, we do. It should be right on your sheet there towards the bottom.
I didn't see it, so.
Yeah, it's there, 1153.
Okay.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
all right. It is there. I missed it and was trying to figure out where that was. Thank you.
No, that's okay. So we have 1,153 readers for the paper, and online we have 109 in Sweetwater County.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other application is from the Green River Star. Would you like to come present? Saw her in the hallway and she said she's battling a cold, so we'll bear with you.
Yes. Good morning, honorable commissioners. Thank you for entrusting the Green River Star with publishing the Sweetwater County legals for the last 2 years. We have maintained a very strong working relationship with the county and have strived to do an excellent job when publishing your legals. The Green River Star has the highest printed newspaper circulation in Sweetwater County, and we are very dependable. We believe it is in the county's best interest to continue entrusting the Green River Star as your newspaper of record. As legals are an important part of the county's business, we have published your legals in a timely manner. There have been no discrepancies in the billing the last year, even during the busy election year. And we have made sure all the departments have had their tear sheets and affidavits. I personally have went above and done anything I can to help the employees of the county and the residents of Sweetwater County. In your packet that I submitted, there are concerns. I have concerns about the rocket miner. We this last December, I had a man drive all the way from Superior to put in abandoned vehicle notices because he was unable to get a hold of anybody. I had another young woman that came in the Star in December, and she was probably around 18 or 19. I was looking at her paperwork for a legal name change because it has to be published for 4 weeks in the newspaper. I looked at it and I was like, this you got this filed in November. And she says, yes, I've been trying for a month to get my legal name change put in. And so she drove to Green River. Customer service is good for all businesses, but I believe that it should include the little guys, the residents of Sweetwater County. And I honestly, genuinely care and do anything I can to help. I've had people call and say, you know what, I missed the deadline. I know it was Wednesday at noon, but I've missed it. Is there any way you can get this in for me? Absolutely. And I do get it in, even if I have to rearrange pages at the last minute. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Slaughter?
Mr. Chairman, same question. I different format, and I'm not
I-
saying circulation. here
I
again,
did
so-
not, but our paid circulations, 2,442 with paid electronic 316. And I'm sorry, I forgot to put that in there.
It's all right. Thank you.
Is there any questions or comments?
Commissioners? Still just the Thursday publication?
Yes, just Thursday.
Okay.
I'm happy with what we've been getting. We've kind of gotten used to that schedule. Without putting Sally on the spot.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, what is your pleasure on the 2025 newspaper of record designation?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Tillman,
I'd make a motion to continue with the Green River Star.
we have a motion to award the 2025 newspaper of record designation to the Green River Star by Commissioner Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Slaughter. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. Thank you both for the applications and for your commitment to covering county news. I know Ann has been here at every meeting and Trina before her, and I know Jackie and her team try to be, and they attend remotely, but we certainly watch and appreciate the fairness that has been delivered in those articles you're writing about us. So keep up the good work, and we'll look forward to another year. And that's going to move us right along to item number 3 under tab C, Commissioners, which is the approval of the fiscal year 2025 CMAQ subrecipient grant agreement. With us this morning is Grants Manager Christina Marshall, as well as Assistant Public Works Director Andy Hooten. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For your consideration, the Wyoming Department of Transportation has awarded Sweetwater County a CMAQ program grant. The project requires a 20% cash match and must be completed by September 30th, 2027. So you may recall from prior years, the purpose of CMAQ is to alleviate air quality issues created by energy development and other industrial activity in the vicinity. So the Public Works Department will use the funding to apply magnesium chloride, dust suppressant to approximately 55 miles of county roads. The total budget is $245,356. At the end of the day, this will create a better road quality surface and improve safety issues with dust from the roadway. So a couple notes, the required cash match of $49,071 was included in the fiscal year 25 budget. So Sweetwater County's actual original grant application was not awarded in full. And I really want to emphasize that staff came together to meet with YDOT to discuss how we could improve future projects and applications. Interestingly, they are actually revamping their process too in Matrix. We did not know how they were going to rank. So what that means is from our original application, we will not be using $37,991 of budgeted match money that will go into cash carryover. As an impact to the project, that means that approximately 37% of the planned roads will not be completed under CMAQ. In your packet, behind my summary page, you have the final project roadways. As you mentioned, our Assistant Public Works Director, Andy Hooton, oversees and implements all the hard work on this project. He's here if you would like to ask questions on those. Typically, they would use the county road fund to complete it. So with that, do you have any questions for me, or would you like Andy to come up here?
Thanks, Christina. Appreciate the background. Any questions for Christina or Andy for that matter, commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality CMAQ subrecipient grant agreement and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Okay, thank you and happy new year.
Same to you. It's going to move us right along to item number 4 this morning, which is the Southwest Counseling Services ARPA grants update. With us this morning, we've got Southwest Counseling CFO Melissa Ray Marchetti, as well as Public Works Director Gene Legursky, neither of which are too anxious about coming forward.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here. Melissa Ray Marchetti, CFO for Southwest Counseling Service. And I'm going to turn it over to Gene.
Well done. Well done.
So this is more of just an update for you guys. For the MOU with Southwest Counseling, we're all trying to be more transparent with you guys and let you guys know what's going on with the various projects. As you guys have known, we have bid 4 projects for Southwest Counseling in the last quarter of the year. All the money has been awarded. However, we were still waiting for some contracts on 3 of those for what they considered inflationary funds. All those have been signed by the state. They passed through their board and they went forward. As you can tell by my report, 3 of those projects have kicked off. One thing that I would like to say is if you guys would look at the very last sheet, it's a spreadsheet that Melissa had put up. When you guys are down in Cheyenne, if you could do me a favor, we're going to turn back about $832,000 to the state. I don't like doing that. Melissa and I have tried our best with our limited connections and abilities to try to reserve that. But we have one particular project, the Jonah Modger, that we cut $307,000 out of for the parking lot to get it under budget because they are awarding each one strictly by all 4 of them, even though, you know, in my feeling, they can be combined and we could use some of that overages to pay for the parking lot. That parking lot has to be done. And we will try to do our best to save different things in the projects to do that, but it'll be on the capital committee list. But if we can use some of those overages on the other projects to pay for that, it's a needed thing. It has to be for occupancy and everything like that. But when you guys are down in Cheyenne, I'll be down there also. Try to hit up some people and see if we, you know, they can see instead of turning it back, if we could just use that money for a worthwhile project. You know, if they hadn't awarded it based on per project, it would have been no big deal, but they awarded it based on per project. So that's why we had to cut that. So any questions?
Just to be clear, that was 832,000 of that ARPA funding, right?
832, 813.30 is what we're going to turn back.
Okay.
If you combine all 4 projects.
Chairman West, one of the projects did not qualify. The Jonah facility did not qualify for inflationary funds. And so it's the other 3 projects that are on the docket for that.
So on that, if the funds are needed for the parking lot of the Jonah, how does that work? You would just use this additional money towards those other projects? Because they try and do that where some were under budget, some were over budget. So we'll shift things around.
Shift things around. We tried to do that and they said no.
Yeah.
So we would like to maybe just, you know, ask why, have a little bit. To me, it doesn't make any sense to go back. They'll have to re-advertise it, get the money back out there and do all that stuff. And everybody knows that these are under timelines when we could certainly use that for a worthwhile project to get a project completed. The other way is we will come back to the board and Southwest Counseling Boards and asked for more money to complete the project. And I don't see any reason why we have to turn that back to the state.
You guys know, we'll do some schmoozing.
That's why I asked you guys to do that. Because you know how well I do it. Not very well.
Okay, so no action today, just.
No action today, just more to try to keep you guys up to date on everything, to be open and transparent with what really is the county, you know, and the state's money and everything like that and the people. And then we'll be doing more of these as the project goes on and just trying to rebuild the relationship that Southwest Counseling and the board has had and keep going forward. You know, I've been heavily involved in these projects along with Plan One and Melissa. And we will be more involved in all their capital stuff as our MOU dictates.
Sounds great. Glad to see it. Appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Question.
Mr. Tillman.
Where's the parking lot? Which one has the parking lot that you need the money for?
So the Jonah Modular,
Oh, okay, and that was a project that wasn't approved though.
it was approved, but there was no inflationary funding approval, it was weird. So we won't even get into that, but yeah, there was no inflationary money approved. The other three projects had inflationary money approved for those projects.
Will that be a problem trying to get it then since it wasn't approved?
I don't know. It's worth the question. They just basically said no, but if you look at that project, you know, realistically, we will give back $292,545 back to the state. The bid was only $306,900. You know, so if we don't have to give that money back, and $14,000 we can make up to do that project instead of making up the whole 306,000. So if we can just use all of that plus 14,000 from the other ones, we don't have to pay for the project at all. So, you know, and that takes into account that if Jonah finishes on schedule and we don't have any change orders and stuff like that, and you know, with buildings, it's tough to really do because you're taking something that you can't see behind walls, HVAC units, everything like that. And you don't know what's going to go on. So I always try to hedge my bet on buildings, where with a heavy civil project, we bid everything by the unit. So if you have 1 million yards of dirt and you only move 980,000, you get a 20,000, you know, yard thing to do. So with buildings, it's a little bit different. I always like to have money until the very dead end, until we can, you know, see exactly where we're at. And that's why I'm asking you guys to, you know, just petition for that. We can use the overage that we already have, plus some overage from the other one. It's not that much, you know, and get the project paved and done. You know, it's something you guys have been working on for 6 years.
Yes.
Something like that, 6 years. I think this project's been 6 years in the making. So it's just a worthwhile thing to do.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you both for keeping us apprised. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If I may just go ahead and say
Sure.
thank you to the commissioners for the support of the buildings and the renovations. And we're also very thankful that we were able to be awarded those SLIB funds as well as the inflationary funds. So it's close to $3.1 million to go ahead and build up and repair and fix those facilities. So we're very grateful for that as well.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and kudos to you all for seeking that out. I know we had some back and forth politics, but I think we got that behind us and look forward to moving forward together and reestablishing a good working relationship. So thanks for all you do,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
and Happy New Year.
To you as well.
That's going to take us to item number 5 on the agenda, Commissioners, which is a request of approval of the 2025 UMR Plan Acceptance Letter. With us this morning is HR Director Gary McLean. Good morning, Gary.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners. Starting 2025 off with some exciting topics. And in that vein, before you is essentially the acceptance letter of the summary plan document. This is the document that essentially guides United Healthcare UMR in paying claims for our health insurance plan. So this is a very detailed document. It tells them what coverage when you go to the doctor, what level of coverage that we're willing to pay for. When we migrated to UMR, we went through line by line with them. Each year, obviously, there's changes, new procedures that come out, things that need to be corrected, and revisions. And so this reflects those. Most of them are not too noteworthy. They have to do with things like foreign immunization, people traveling abroad and things. But I thought you might be interested in one in particular, so I'll highlight that. One is the additional coverage for a bone marrow procedure called ex vivo gene therapy, which occurs when cells are removed from a patient and modified outside the body in a lab using specialized approaches like adding a new gene to the cell or fixing a gene in the cell that is causing the disease. The modified or engineered cells are then returned to the patient. So if any of you have a need for that, that is now part of our plan description. Anyway, the point of it is healthcare is an evolving process. This is the document that keeps that process current with those changes in the industry. And so with that, I would request the board to approve the document, authorize the chairman to sign, and I would be happy to entertain any questions if the board has them.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate the information. Any questions on the acceptance letter, commissioners? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2025 UMR plan acceptance letter and authorize the chairman to sign. Motion by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Next on the agenda is item number 6. We've got an update on the record of decision for the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan. With us is Land Use Director Eric Bingham. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning. Your favorite subject matter, Mr. Chairman.
No doubt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to acknowledge some people that are also here that I've invited. We have Senator Jones, appreciate her being here. And then online, we do have Trinity Lewis from Representative Hageman's office. And then, of course, Danielle Betancourt, who assisted us legally through the protest period. And then also the filing of both the comments on the draft EIS also when that came out. So appreciate them being here. And as you know, the record of decision has been released, and just everything in a nutshell, all the protests were denied. So everyone that had submitted a protest, they were denied. So the results of that are the draft EIS is, and the final EIS is what it is. So there were no changes made to it. So for benefit of the public, just wanted to roughly go through so that they understand the implications of what's happened now as far as, and I've got some maps up on the screen. And I do want to point out that these are taken from the book, the actual draft EIS. This is, we'll show you what alternative A is so that we all know what alternative A is. It's the current resource management plan and then the proposed RMP. So the first map that you're seeing there is the fluid mineral leasing, which is your oil and gas map. And you can see what's in red is what's going to be closed to oil and gas. As far as acreage goes for that, you're going from 540,000 acres that was closed under the current resource management plan to 935,000. So almost double the amount of closure for oil and gas. This is a visual resource management. What this means is this is how they regulate their scenic or hold their scenic values and such. And there's different classifications for that. There starts at a visual class 1, which is the most restrictive, which is in red, what you see there. And those mostly are in areas of wilderness study areas where, is holding the visual. It's usually no development that's allowed within those areas. And so visual class 1. Below that is a visual class 2, where basically whatever you're doing as far as development wise has to be hidden or, blend in with the environment, and it can't have a sharp contrast to that. So it makes development very difficult in a visual class 2 compared to a 3 and a 4, which 3 gets in the, as far as classification, if you're in a 3, you have to BLM colors and such. And then when you get to a 4, the least restrictive. So in a visual class 2, you can see that number has increased quite a bit. As far as acreages go, you were looking at and visual classifications of 580,000 roughly right now, under the current resource management plan, or the previous, I should say, because now we have a record decision. And under the new resource management plan, it's 1.3 million. So it was definite huge jump in visual class 2, which will have effects on development. As far as the right-of-way map, as we know, had a lot of concerns with right-of-way exclusion areas. And especially on our alternative B, when it came out under the draft EIS, where a lot of checkerboard was within these closure areas. And I will say, from the draft EIS to the final EIS, they did address a lot of the exclusion areas in the checkerboard, which would have been extremely devastating to Sweetwater County, because it was everything. It was in the growth management area, it was the areas in Rock Springs, and would have had huge implications on infrastructure, whether it's water and sewer and other utilities. So that has been addressed, but as you can see, there's been a lot of expansiveness in exclusion areas, going from roughly around 400,000 to over 900,000 now. Avoidance areas, which are also of concern. So avoidance areas also can make it difficult for infrastructure and such. And we're going from 730,000 to over 1 million acres in right-of-way avoidance areas. A lot of the area in the red desert you can see is going to become an exclusion area. And where the concerns come up for Sweetwater County, especially Sweetwater County government right now, is the county roads that we have within there. Spoken with Public Works Director Gene Legursky about that. Concerns come up with when you got to replace culverts, if there has to be realignments of roads due to safety concerns. What does that exclusion mean? What if there's additional right-of-way that's needed? And so that's a big concern for us as we move forward. So, and that we're also part of the protest when we did file that. So OHV, another issue was going to what is called limited. Basically, the changes there are going from limited to existing roads and trails, which is the current, well, previous RMP, to the new RMP where it goes to limited to designated roads and trails. So there's a huge difference between those two, because when you talk about designated roads and trails, I know I talked to Commissioner Jones quite a bit about this, is designated roads and trails are what's designated by the BLM, and that's of concern as to what that means. We do know that the travel management plan was not a part of this, but it was done, as Commissioner Toman has stated, during the 12 years of cooperator. It has been done, and when that will be complete, don't know, haven't heard anything as far as that goes, but you're going roughly from what's limited to existing roads of 2.3 million to now it's limited to designated roads of 3.3 million, which is of concern. And definitely when we go through the travel management plan, we definitely need to be a part of that, sure that access is still continued. So as far as the protest goes, all of our things that we brought up in concern with ACECs and such, one of our biggest issues, and just working with Danielle Bencourt and working with John De Leon, as we've discussed and gone through this, is that we understand that monitoring is not a part of the resource management plan, but how do you know if somewhere needs to be protected if you're not monitoring? And when we did a FOIA request over the last, I can't remember when, over 10 years, we wanted to see annual reports that are supposed to be done annually. We got 2 years worth of annual reports that were very limited in information. So our biggest one of our arguments has been is that if these truly areas, especially these areas of critical environmental concern are necessary, you'd be monitoring it. And you could show that there's been degradation and things like that, that it is necessary for them to be in an area of critical environmental concern. So I understand that in the protest, but there were some interesting things that I'll go over a little bit, but as far as the ACECs go, but just so you know, that was one of the arguments that we had. As far as, so in section 1.8.3, it clearly states in the record decision, no changes to the proposed RMP final EIS were necessary. That was stated by them. So based on the protest report, because there were no successful protests, there was no changes. One thing that's interesting is some of the arguments that were used in the Rollins Resource Management Plan Amendment was under visual resource management was that they didn't look at resource allocations. So what that means is when they were classifying these scenic areas in the resource management plan for Rollins, they weren't looking at things that are on the ground, such as developments like oil and gas wells and such. Well, when we went through and did our comments for this, we made that same argument. And they basically in the protest report, they said, well, they did look at it, but there is still issues with development and things like that that are existing. And now that you've placed a more restrictive visual resource area over it, more scenic designation, what does that mean for those existing development facilities? And those arguments were made and were successful under one RMP, but are not successful under this one, which is confusing. So just thought I'd bring that up. As far as the justification of ACECs, one thing that was a statement in the protest report was justification for an ACEC designation is not usually a part of the EIS analysis. Interesting. So you would think it would be a part of the EIS analysis, but that was a statement that was made in there. But is an element of the record of decision. So kind of a confusing statement. A lot of the things that were brought up in the protest, such as consistency review, which myself and Commissioner Toman worked on the Sweetwater County Federal Lands and Resource Plan that was not evaluated in the draft EIS, was brought up in the protest, but there was no response. So another issue, and just feel as though it was ignored.
Eric, she said in our
Sure,
federal
go ahead.
partners meeting that
Yeah.
it wasn't ignored. It was only kicked out because we had included a piece of Sublette County in that Wind River ACEC. So that gave her excuse to ignore the whole plan.
Yeah,
That was her response when I asked her.
just there was no response, and
Right.
just another example of just was not shown in that protest report. So, Danielle, is there anything you'd like to add before I move on to just moving forward steps?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, Eric. I think you captured it.
So that's where we're at right now. So the record of decision, and that will, of course, once it's signed, will be in place. The discussion now is we're going to have a change of administration on January 20th, and where we move forward. And that's really where I'm coming here today is, we are where we are right now, and where do we move forward? And there's options that are on the table. One thing, the discussion and potential is, litigation, which would involve an injunction. If that is somewhere where we would want to move, things to keep in consideration are standing. And, we have, I think it's 2 years, I believe, John and Danielle, I believe we have a 2-year time window right now. And part of standing is you have to show harm. And that's an important aspect of it, because you don't want to file a lawsuit and then it get thrown out because you don't have standing. You lose your ability, to, what would you say, John? Credibility, basically, with the judge if you file something where you don't have all your ducks in a row. So that's something important to consider. That's especially under a new administration, and part of that could be a stipulated agreement. We do a lot of stipulated agreements in court, whether it's nuisance or zoning violations, we'll do stipulated agreements. But if you do something like that, you want to make sure that you have, someone on the other side that you can work with in the BLM that will be willing to work with you on a stipulated agreement. So that's one option. Another option could be potentially meeting with the BLM once that director is appointed. That's great. The administration will change on January 20th, but you do have to wait until the appointment is made, which could be in the first 100 days. And there's a lot of appointments and such. Usually that would probably be my suggestion moving forward, is that when that time comes and there is an appointment made, that with elected officials. I'd be more than willing to go. I've been to DC and testified in front of Congress on this RMP. I'd be more than willing to go with whoever would like to go, but it could be important just to reach out and have that communication moving forward. So with that, Mr. Chairman, those are kind of some of the things that we've discussed. Just want to open it up and up for discussion. I know also that the Congressional Review Act is also another thing that within the first, I believe it's 60 days or so, that can also, but in case that's not successful, maybe look at some other options. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, right now.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the information. We continue to beat the dead horse on it, but it's so significant that I think a lot of people still don't understand how significant and important
Right.
it is. And the fact that everything was basically, a wasted effort. I don't know if wasted's the right word, but certainly a disregarded effort when there's essentially no change from the revised draft to the final EIS and record of decision. And I think there's a clear agenda there, and unfortunately, we're going to have to suffer those consequences. I agree with having a standing and seeing what that impact will be. Certainly, economically speaking, I don't know how soon that information will come available, but I know certainly our industry partners are well aware and well concerned on some of the different right of ways and exclusions and all the other designations you mentioned. So I would assume it's probably without saying, pretty obvious that, there's some form of litigation on the horizon. And as to what changes with the administration, I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, pretty disappointing to say the least. There have been some changes that, we've acknowledged in previous meetings that I think were good, but, the overall scheme of it was minimal. And I think we focused a lot of our time on the special designations, and all of that is pretty much null and void at this point.
Right.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be more than willing to join you in Washington, DC if that opportunity arises. But on the injunction, you said we have to show harm. So how best do we do that? Do we have to wait until there is harm? I mean, we know the document itself tells us what the harm is going to be, at least maybe not all of it, but certainly some of it. So do we have to wait a certain period of time in order to show job loss or show tax revenues down? Or how does that work in order to do the injunction? I've never been involved in that.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, and Danielle, certainly add any information that you want to add here, but I think that Eric kind of identified some different locations where you can participate. Of course, the first part of that is during the potential appointment process. So to be able to maximize your participation during that piece of the puzzle. The second part of that process would be prior to a actual lawsuit being filed, wherein standing, et cetera, would be being developed. And during that pre-lawsuit timeframe, there can be opportunity for negotiations and discussions about the subject matter of that lawsuit, which essentially involves an assessment of the procedural violations which Eric has identified, including the lack of monitoring since the beginning of the RMP process. And so that analysis of the subject matter of the lawsuit, you would think would be through a lens that would be different than, not exactly the same. So for there to be two different administrations, two different lenses, that should result in a difference in analysis if there is in fact a difference in policy. So you can establish the basis of the lawsuit where there are stipulations. And that's what you do a lot of times. You can have a negotiation, a discussion as to where there's agreement, where there's not agreement, so that when you do go into an actual filing, you can identify where there's stipulations and where there are not stipulations. So I think Eric's suggestion of being able to, during that pre-lawsuit timeframe, have as much discussion as possible so that you can eliminate all of those issues in whether it be standing, whether it be identifying hairs where we agree, identifying some of those black and white issues that it's hard to see how you wouldn't agree that there are violations. I know one thing that Eric pointed out in his review of the record of decision and the documents that were presented where there was no response even to the notice violation. So he's identifying several different areas that haven't been addressed, weren't addressed, were simply, as you, Commissioner, identified, and I think that Commissioner Richards identified, demonstrated that there was a goal to be accomplished. It wasn't letting the facts determine the conclusion. And so I guess, Commissioner, to answer your question is, I think those prerequisites can be identified best, I think, through discussion rather than, and focusing on the merits as much as you can, rather than putting the emphasis, I think, directly on the standing issue. There's lots of ways to accomplish that. And I think Eric started to address some of those through roads, et cetera, leases, things of that nature. So there's lots of different areas where those can be identified, but I think the primary focus is on the merits of that appeal and through those discussions. And certainly I defer to Danielle in any comments she might have.
Yeah, I would just add to it to answer your question in terms of showing injury and harm. So if, basically if it goes to the level of litigation and without getting too much into the weeds of things, you have to be able to show you have standing to sue. And so under the regulations and the statutes that you're suing under, so under the Administrative Procedure Act or NEPA or FLTMA and the like, but to have standing, you have to show that you have some type of legal interest, and that the RMP is injuring or impacting that interest. And so, a lot of times it kind of depends, but a lot of times the courts look at the proprietary interests of the county, like your ability to enforce your land use and health regulations, your powers of revenue collection and taxation, your ability to protect natural resources, and your interests in like the land management practices on federal lands that are adjacent to lands that are within your county's jurisdiction. So those are types of things that you'd have to be able to show, and to show standing in any type of litigation involving Administrative Procedure Act and federal statutes and the like. So that's kind of part of it. And that can't necessarily be injuries or harms that may occur in the future. It's usually a lot better if you can show harm that's currently occurring now because of those decisions. But a lot of things to wade through and to look at in terms of that. But it is a big part of any, if you do bring a litigation, like Eric was saying, you don't want to get kicked out because you don't have standing. And as frustrating as it may sound, it's happened. It's happened to the state. It's happened to local governments in trying to challenge resource management plans or other planning efforts at other levels. And so it is definitely something that, if you go that route, it's something that you would kind of get down and make sure you are able to show standing before you bring any kind of lawsuit.
And that was thank you. I appreciate it, because that's kind of the direction I was going, was trying to figure out, if we're trying to figure out what is best, and how this all plays into the 60-day period of the Congressional Review Act. And I don't want people spinning their wheels and spending money for nothing, but I think we need every approach we can take at it. I think Friday's meeting was proof that if there's any question that they're going to come at us hard and fast and they're going to pull out every stop, then we need to do the same.
Additional comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Richards.
Trinity, I hope you're still there. I wanted to ask without tipping any strategic hands, has Representative Hageman considered the use of the Congressional Review Act? Is there any motion in that direction? Nothing.
Trinity, you're muted if you're speaking.
Guess that answers that.
Did I add something?
Mr. Tillman.
The National Association is meeting in DC on the first week in March. And I'm registered to go. That would be past the 20 days, but WCCA is trying to schedule meetings with all of the congressional people and the department leads. So they're doing those meetings on the February 27th and 28th in DC.
Okay.
During NACO.
Okay.
And I don't even know if people would be in place by then, but just we can do an outreach then.
Additional comments or questions, commissioners?
I apologize, Eric. I just saw your text message and I lost audio for a moment. So I heard Danielle and then she dropped off at the end of what she was saying. So is there a question? I can hear you now.
Mr. Chairman. Trinity, this is Commissioner Richards. My question was, has Representative Hageman considered use of the CRA? And I didn't want you to have to tip any strategic hands or anything, but has she considered that? And has there been any motion in that direction?
Commissioner Richards, I would want to check with our legislative staff before he said yes or no, but I can confirm that she's working to reintroduce the bill to nullify the RMP, and that press release will be going out soon as well. So I have every indication that she is doing everything that she can to push back against this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Derek, or any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, of course, there's a hefty price tag with litigation and such, and any way the state can help us out, would be beneficial for us, especially through any legislation or such. But what I can do is just keep you informed of anything that comes up with this, and BLM director, and I'll make sure that information gets to you. And this is going to be a long process. So I'll just, as far as when a BLM director does get appointed and such, that we are very interested in knowing that and moving forward. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point there. We met with the governor here, obviously a couple of weeks ago, that we just spoke about in some of our comments. And a lot of that discussion was what we're discussing now, and
right,
what the options are moving forward, and, relying on the state to help with some of that, litigation push. And during that hijack that we had of that meeting, it was, a criticism of not pushing back enough on the federal government. And there's a catch-22 there, because in order to do that, you got to have the proper funding to be able to push back and fight the federal government. So, a lot of the belief going into the legislature from some individuals is that we just need to cut everything and be as conservative as possible. But in doing that, they could, dampen our chances of litigating and pushing back on issues such as this. So I know Senator Jones understands that, but I agree. It's too big of an ask for, I would think, a county to take on, and we're going to need that partnership with the state in whichever avenue that may be. So
There is money in FNRPA. They're just not releasing it. It's like 3 million in there, I believe.
any other comments? We'll continue to keep our eye on it, and I guess we'll
Okay.
see what happens with the new administration. But thanks for the update and keeping your foot on the pedal with that one.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, thanks, Danielle and Trinity.
Yeah.
That's going to move us to item number 7, Commissioners. We've got a Weed and Pest Board appointment before us this morning. Due to the expiring term for James Mines, we do have 2 applicants on file, one being Mr. James Mines and another is Ronald Kobe. This is for a 4-year term, and I would open it up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Richards.
would move to appoint Ronald Kobe to the position on the Weed and Pest Control Board.
We have a motion to approve Ronald Kobe by Commissioner Richards. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on the appointment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion's unanimous. And the last item of business before us is item number 8, which is the 2025 Conflict of Interest Statements. Another annual piece of business we got to handle at the first meeting of each year. So we'll go down the line. These all have to be read aloud. And Commissioner Slaughter, would you mind starting us off?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, Robert D. Slaughter, Board of County Commissioners, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. I believe it is now currently Bank of Montreal, which used to be our Bank of the West, and Trona Valley Federal Credit Union. Sincerely, Robert D. Slaughter.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Jones?
I, Taylor C. Jones, Board County Commissioner, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. Trona Valley Federal Credit Union, First Bank, Meridian Bank, Commerce Bank, RSNB. Sincerely, Taylor Jones, Sweetwater Board County Commissioners.
Thanks, Commissioner. I, Keaton D. West, Board of County Commissioners, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. Commerce Bank of Wyoming, Trona Valley Federal Credit Union, Waihi Federal Credit Union, and Utah Power Credit Union. Commissioner Tolman.
All right. I, Mary E. Tolman, Board of County Commissioners, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. First Bank of Wyoming, Trona Valley Federal Credit Union, Bank of Montreal, formerly Bank of the West, U.S. Bank.
Thanks, Commissioner. And Commissioner.
Clearly me.
That's what I thought too. Commissioner Richards.
I, Island Richards, Board of County Commissioners, Sweetwater County, Wyoming, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. RSNB Bank, PNC Bank, Wells Fargo, US Bank, Chase Bank. Sincerely me.
Thanks, Commissioners. I believe we also have a conflict of interest statement for Treasurer Cowan. So we'll hand the floor over to you.
Good morning. I, S. Mark Cowan, Sweetwater County Treasurer, declare that I now have or previously have held personal savings, checking, loan, or investment accounts in the following institutions in which Sweetwater County has previously invested or may invest public funds in the future. Commerce Bank of Wyoming, Wells Fargo Bank. Sincerely me as well.
Thanks, Treasurer. Commissioners, with no further business, we fell a little bit behind, but good discussion and good meeting. Anxious to get going on 2025, so we're on our way. This meeting stands adjourned.